And good morning, everyone. And happy National Frozen Yogurt Day. So all of you who had yogurt for breakfast, right on, you're right on cue. And I read it incorrectly, but I also read that I thought it was National Buddha Day, but it's actually National Bubba Day. So if you have a friend named Bubba, then please congratulate them on their day. So those of you who commute in from Kansas or maybe used to live there or just are aware of this phrase, it has shown up in many places. Star Trek, it was on an episode of Star Trek. It was on a badge, I believe, on a uniform. And it's actually on a plaque at Cape Canaveral. And so it's been used in many different places, not just the Kansas state motto. So those of you that, of course, see this and are familiar with Ad Astra Per Aspera, the Latin phrase, the Kansas state motto, and it means to the stars through difficulty. Or sometimes you hear the word hardship, to the stars through hardship. One of those two like that. And it correlates wonderfully with the Buddhist practice. In Buddhism, we have a little phrase, and it is often said that it is the suffering that wakes us up. The pleasant things in life are wonderful. We don't ever want to block or prevent those, but those are not the things that wake us up. It is the suffering that wakes us up. Because, interestingly enough, when you look at it, the only way to know not suffering is to know suffering. So it is the suffering that wakes us up. And so you can see the similarities. And as usual, my life is the source of the Dharma talks that I share with everybody. My life is my practice. And so they are not separate. They are one and the same. So what else could I talk about? Chapter 5, paragraph 3. I mean, it doesn't really work that way, at least not in the Dharma, in the sense of the Dharma. So as usual, my life is my practice, and my life is the source of my talks. And so in the past 3 weeks, I have encountered a number of challenges that have really pushed my practice. In fact, my teacher would say, when I would talk with my teacher, I'd come together and he'd be like, so how are things going? I mean, like, oh, they're just great. And he goes, okay, well, put all that aside. What's the edge of your practice? Let's start there. And so when I actually met with my teacher Saturday, boy, we needed about 4 hours to talk about the edge of my practice. And so as I encountered these difficulties, the stars that were reached through encountering difficulties were things such as humility. I was humbled by these experiences. And that humbling, that humility, for me, it was a reminder of home. Humility and being humble is a path to awakening all by itself, but also some clarity. And as I was taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, what really stood out for me the most in working with these difficulties was patience. Patience is what became profoundly evident for me. And so the talk today, Ad Astra Per Aspera, is, to the stars through difficulty. It's the suffering that wakes us up. And so the intersection of our practice and the world, for me anyway, has been patience. Patience. So let's unpack that. I'm going to start with a little Zen story for you guys. There was a monk who was very impatient. And you might, of course, wonder, now, why would a monk be impatient, right? I mean, don't they become monks so that they don't have to deal with the world? Well, yes, that's true to a degree. So imagine how impatient this monk was. So the more he tried and the more he meditated in mindfulness, the more impatient he became. And so he decided that he must get away from it all altogether in order to learn to be patient. So he built himself a little house deep in the forest and far away from civilization and all the troubles and trials and tribulations of daily life. And so years later, a man was traveling through the forest, and he happened to come upon the monk, and he was amazed to find anyone living so far away from the rest of the world. And so he asked the monk, "Why are you living out here in the middle of the forest all by yourself?" And the monk said that he was here to learn patience. And so the traveler said, "Well, how long have you been here?" And the monk said, 7 years. And the traveler was kind of stunned, and he said, "Well, if there's no one around to bother you, how will you know when you've learned patience?" And the monk was like, "Get away from here, I don't have time for you." Needless to say, he closed down the house and packed up everything and moved to Kansas City and began leading a Temple Buddhist center. So in the practice of Zen, in the Zen tradition, they don't actually use the word patience. They use the word constancy. Constancy. So instead of patience, constancy. Constancy is a kind of a dedication to what you love and what you care about. And with that dedication comes trust, a trust that by planting beautiful seeds, eventually, in their own time, they will bear fruit. So in Buddhism, patience is one of the 6 perfections. And so in the Buddhist practice, patience is one of the 6 perfections. And you'll remember this from our refuge prayer, right? Wisdom, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort. So we're talking about the 6 perfections when we talk about the refuge prayer. And so patience is oftentimes considered the most important of all the 6 perfections, because without it, the other 5 will fail. And so patience has many ways in which we can experience or employ it, so to speak. Standing in line, waiting for an Amazon shipment, sitting at a stoplight, or how about being patient with people, waiting for a spouse or a partner, perhaps listening to an elderly person repeat a story, or listening to a young child who wants to tell you a completely made-up story that we know has no basis in reality, but they're excited about sharing their imagination with you. All of these offer an opportunity to practice on one level. And it is a good practice, but these examples imply a kind of quiet enduring, a tolerance, if you will, a non-fixing or refraining, a passivity. And this is actually not at all what I'm talking about today. But it bears mentioning, right? Because that is a kind of a practice. The deeper teaching of patience is to be present with hardship and difficulty. Actively present with hardship and difficulty. There is absolutely nothing passive about it. In the depth of practice that I'm talking about in working with patients. It is natural to turn away in the face of difficulty. We want to go somewhere else. We want to be someone else. Think of something else. Feel something else. We distract, we deny, we blame, we rush around and we get busy with all kinds of cleaning, fixing, repairing, and it might not even be our own house. We might wind up in our neighbor's house cleaning their house, and they're like, what are you doing? It'll all be okay, just leave me alone. We've been there, right? I mean, this is part of the human condition. The first part of the human condition is the disease of the mind. The disease of the mind is that it always wants things to be different than the way they are. And the other human condition is how quickly and easily we can distract ourselves from what's uncomfortable. It's natural. That's why there's not 45,000 people here. The work that we're doing is hard. It's difficult work. The way out is the way through. We're not distracting you with rock bands, 45-foot jumbotrons, confetti cannons, although I kind of like the idea of confetti cannons. So our way, as Robert would often say, what's in the way is the way. Our practice is to go into it. So, how do we practice patience? We begin by starting small. The perfection of patience proceeds on by familiarity. We start with something manageable, and we work our way up to larger, more difficult experiences. Remembering not to produce stronger suffering, but working with what naturally arises. In the past 3 weeks, the things that have shown up have been very, very challenging emotionally, financially, all kinds of different things. And it was fascinating for me as a practitioner to first sit with the uncomfortableness. In fact, it was downright painful. To sit with it, be present, to explore it. What does pain look like, feel like, sound like, smell like? Where does it show up in my body? Really embracing pain and being with it, not tolerating it, exploring it, going into it. This process of working with it, I could also at the same time be absolutely aware of the suffering that was wanting to play too. Suffering's like, oh, I want to play. This is juicy. Oh yeah, let's get into this. So here come all the thoughts, all the blame. Oh boy, somebody's going to pay for this. Heads are going to roll, right? All those thoughts. There's all the thoughts that then would flip to the pity party. I can't have anything nice. I don't really deserve any kind of, benefits and great things. All the thoughts. There they were. They all showed up. It was a great big party. Our practice has never been about getting rid. I'm getting some hallelujahs here. I can say. Our practice has never been about getting rid of these things. Because again, they're natural, they're normal. These are old tapes and old patterns. Our practice is about seeing the old tapes and the old patterns for what they are. Not me, not mine. I am not this. Those are the words of the Buddha. So the Buddha didn't teach happiness and joy. The Buddha taught suffering, because it is the suffering that keeps us from being able to realize our true nature, which is happiness, which is joy. which is compassion and love. That is who we truly are, but we don't know that because it is covered over by fear, greed, hatred, and delusion. They keep us from being able to realize and to sense that. And this is where the patience comes in, because if we can be patient with what is uncomfortable, what is painful, what is causing so much difficulty, and stay with it. Pema Chodron always likes to talk about when she's working with people, she'll provide a perspective on something. They'll bring up something painful, and then she'll sit there and she'll be stay with it. The mind wants to go off onto a tangent, something, or get busy, or to think about anything but what's actually here and now, what's actually happening now. This is how we come to know reality. Usually we have glasses on and we see reality through that. We actually see reality as we are instead of as it is. So patience, for me, the past 3 weeks has been the most incredible tool in my bag of tools that all of us have as practitioners. We're always helping each other. That's why we come together, sharing our methods, our techniques, sharing our difficulties with each other, not as an echo chamber so that I can get all kinds of sympathy and empathy. Oh, it feels so good. Yes, shower me with sympathy and pity. I love it. We don't do it for that reason because we know that none of that's real. We do that so as I share my practice, as I share my difficulties, I then share how my practice informed those challenges and how those challenges shaped my practice. That's why we do it. It's a conscious conversation, not an echo chamber. It's a conscious conversation, not a chance for me to get some external affirmation outside of myself. So let's look at 3 aspects of working with patience. Number 1, being with difficulty. Our first and natural reaction is to blame, and this then moves into anger, which we already understand is the action arm of fear. So letting your practice put space around the emotion and allow the anger first to be present in awareness, and then with curiosity, a playful curiosity, we explore it and we investigate, how does anger manifest in this body? And in this way, we purify the anger or the frustration or the sadness or whatever it is that has arisen. And then if action is needed, then we will take action, but by responding, not reacting. We can respond to the person or the organization or to the thing in a way that is helpful for all of us. Personal hardship, when experiencing a personal hardship and experience, it intensifies and something becomes very, very painful. And in the Bodhisattva practice, the expansion, the nature of suffering through awareness and the acts of the imagination, seeing how the imagination can feed into what is painful, and then the pain then feeds more imagination, and we get stuck in a loop. And then we begin to experience hopelessness, despair, because we can't get out of this loop. Our practice teaches us how. We release, we take, as Robert sometimes talks about, taking off the head and setting it on the table next to you, and feel, what does anger, frustration, what does hopelessness feel like? Stay with the feeling in the body, and we short circuit this feedback loop. So when suffering becomes a tool, we are able to turn the poison into medicine. we're able to take what we're feeling, and when we truly go into it and experience it as not mine, this is not me, I am not this, then we realize that what we're experiencing is pain that connects us all. It is human pain. We all experience loss. We all experience loneliness. We all experience anger. We all experience frustration. So it becomes communal in a way. And in the same way, we learn to partner with our imagination for good, allowing our imagination to help us intuitively find a way to using the imagination to purify and process this anger. Once I have explored it fully in my body, and this can take 10, 15, 20 minutes, seeing every aspect, looking at the diamond from every angle possible, I then partner with my imagination to release. Do I want to reach in and take out this energy knot? And do I want to plant it? Do I want to paint it? Do I want to sculpt it? Do I want to release it? Maybe it's not something I can get a hold of. Instead, I hook up a tap and I drain it onto Mother Earth, where she will grow beautiful things from it. Or perhaps I breathe into it and breathe out of it. The imagination, when you're partnering with the imagination for good, has all kinds of ways for you to purify and release this energy knot, this painful energy knot within. Speaking of pain, let's talk about physical pain for a moment. What is the relationship with patience and physical pain? Working with pain in meditation can be a way to develop patience. Here is a way to go about it. When physical pain arises in meditation, stay with the breath and the sensations of physical pain. Don't move, don't adjust, even though you want to. Doing this will quickly show you how the mind runs when it doesn't like what's going on. You can actually watch it looking for an exit. All kinds of ways. Oh, it's time for a little drink. Or maybe it's time for a hit. Mama's little helper will show up and save the day. Movies, TV, sex, religion, Amazon Prime, oh, yes. So the invitation is to stay with it, okay? Now, it might sound a little masochistic, but we are going somewhere with this, all right? And it's when you watch the body, how does the body release, let's say, for example, a splinter? If you don't mess with it, the body will release it. Beautifully so. It will get swollen, it will pus up, and it will push the splinter out. Why would our body not help us in all the other ways as well? Stay with it. When we are present with the pain and we learn the techniques of allowing to really investigate and then allowing our imagination to help us release and purify, then at some point we will work through and move through it. Now, please understand, physical pain, if you need to see a doctor or if there is medicine that is necessary, I'm not saying, fundamentally, really, get rid of everything else. Yes, we work with the process of life. If there's medicine, great. If there is a practice, a stretching that the doctor has given to you, yes, of course, great. We do those things. But if you sit with the urge to shift or move one time and you notice it, you begin to establish a new relationship with pain. If you sit with the urge to fix, repair, save a second time, you begin to move into a deeper space, and you can see how pain can help us realize that it is the body that feels pain. Our awareness does not. And our awareness is who we truly are. I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have feelings and emotions, but I am not those feelings and emotions. And I have thoughts, but I am not those thoughts. I, for whatever term we can, I am what is aware of all those things. I am the consciousness. When the consciousness leaves this body, it simply goes back to the earth. That's how we know that's who we are. And so you see, if you can stay with it, 1 urge, 2 urge, then your practice can exponentially grow. And then on the 3rd urge, go ahead and shift, move, take a drink, whatever. But it is those first 2 urges of sitting with the pain that can exponentially expand our practice. And 3rd, being with the human condition itself. Patience with the human condition. Peace and concern for others is the bodhisattva path. It is clear that anger must be dissolved. Trying to practice love and compassion and letting go of anger doesn't mean acquiescing when harm is done, especially when others are being hurt. A bodhisattva can never stand by and let that happen. A bodhisattva practices radical acts of protection, which might sometimes be forceful. But force is avoided, if at all possible, in favor of any gentler method that stands even a slight chance of working. Even where forceful methods seem necessary, they are applied without anger. They are applied without hatred. And they are applied, rather, simply with a sadness and a strength, even compassion, that sometimes sometimes I am the dispenser of karma. You have no choice sometimes. And so we rest in our compassion for the human condition and an eye to eventual healing as soon as the conflict resides or abates. So I want to close first just summarizing these 3 areas of working with patience. It is a much deeper practice than just a quiet enduring. Patience can be a whole way of living your life, being patient with the human condition, being patient with pain, being patient with the dharmas or all of the mind states, the stories, the commentary, the decision-making that sometimes just bounces around endlessly, fatiguing us so often. So we can bring patience into our practice in that way. And so I want to close with this great poem by Mark Nepo, which I think does such a beautiful job of giving us a glimpse of patience on a whole nother level. The leaves do what we cannot. They wait their whole life. At first they dream of air and wait to slip from the bark. Then they dream of openness and wait to stretch in light. Then they dream of thirst and wait to soften in the rain. At last they dream of nothing and simply unfurl. The mystery of waiting is what turns light into food. To wait beyond what we think we can bear is how things within turn sweet. Thank you.